to talk about why do we really need to do composting. So first and the foremost thing, I think most of us, because we are already green inside and we have been green souls, we understand that waste in itself has become an issue. It's an environmental issue. And if you look around, every city today is collecting tons and tons of waste, as the MCG cars, the guardian come in the morning and they, they ultimately, go to the dump yards, and they are like, they're becoming like, the sense are, municipal corporations, they are still clueless. We don't have any systems in place, and we don't know how this, this whole issue can be sorted. So what can we do as individuals? So I understand is that when I look into my bin, I see that about 60 to 70% of the waste that I generate is biodegradable. So what I see is that when it is biodegradable, can I be a part of this solution? If there is no solution coming from outside, can I be a part of this solution? So becoming a part of the solution is that we start composting. Whether it is biodegradable, we start composting that. The second thing that we, I, as a gardener, I feel very attached to composting is that nutrition for us and for our plants is almost the same. So whatever little stub and scrap that comes out of a kitchen when we are cutting our vegetables, when we're cutting our fruits, that little waste, which we call as waste, is enough nutrition for the plants. So I'll give you a small example. When I get up in the morning, I boil 2 eggs for myself, and I say, oh, this is a source of protein and calcium for me today. When you take your eggs, think about your plant babies which are there in the garden. That little shell that will come out of those 2 eggs will be sufficient calcium for your plants. So this is exactly what we need to do, is just need to divert our waste into our gardens, and composting is an excellent way to do an observation. Because natural practices have become very popular, and they have become they are like, people are catching on to it. The demand for compost in the market has really gone up. Now everything which becomes commercial definitely calls for bad business practices. So when it is commercial and the demand is very high, now they have started adulteration. So recently I have observed the last 4-5 years that the compost in the market is also adulterated. Or rubber ka chura and sewage sludge. I mean, what all they mix into that. So it's like, it's an adulterated compost that you're getting in the market. Nothing like the nice, nutritious and healthy food that you actually eat for yourself in the kitchens. Like we as gardeners, we eat a lot of organic also now, homegrown now. So we take care of that. So what you're feeding to your soil and what you're feeding to your plants also should be taken equally, in a more responsible way. So if you want to really give pure compost, do it at home and create your own compost and transfer it to the to your plants. Now, coming to how we need to compost, now we will take over to Usha. Usha, I will request you to guide us. What are the little nuances, and what are the really what we as newcomers need to know how to go about composting? So we'll understand from her. So my first question to you is that, what is the mantra or the basic principle on which composting is based?
Hi, Sangeeta. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. So, like you said, composting is for everyone, right? We don't want it to grow their own plants or fruits and vegetables. So it's something that I think that's how composting has started. It is for everyone. It's something that everyone should be doing. It's something that's the only waste and where it actually ends up in. So like you said, composting is super simple. It's very easy. The basic skill that you need for composting is get your kitchen waste. That's all of your fruits and vegetable peels, all the scraps that come out of your kitchen, all of your cooked food. It could be even the rice that got left over yesterday, right? So everything can be turned into compost. So you need all of your kitchen waste. And then you also need something called the brown material. So this brown material basically comes from all of your dry leaves, It could be the coco peat, which is basically the coconut husk fiber. So it could be coco peat, it could be even cardboard, it could even be brown paper that you can use for composting. So composting can be done very easily. So all you require, like I said, is your kitchen waste, which is your nitrogen, your carbons, which is all of these other items that you can use, and also some amount of oxygen or without oxygen. So these are the two variants that you can choose between. I'll go a little further into what difference does it make when you do choose oxygen and when you don't. But let me start with a little bit more basic of what composting is all about. So composting is very easy. So what is composting? It's just basically, when your kitchen matter just starts to dry out, starts to decay. That's what composting is all about. It happens naturally. It's something that has been happening on Earth for the longest period of time. When you leave a banana peel as it is,
Yeah.
it starts to rot, it starts to change its color, and it just starts to remove the water, release the water that's inside inside the banana peel, and then it slowly turns into compost with the help of nature. So by this I also mean like various microorganisms that come into play, the oxygen and the air that comes into play. So a lot of different small items that together help in this composting process. So that's what composting is
what
all
you
about.
mean is that decomposition is something which is natural. It's a natural
Exactly.
phenomena that keeps happening in nature. But when I say I do composting, it basically means that I am trying to do it in a miniature form, or I am going to do it at home. That's all.
Exactly.
So
We're
it's a
just
natural
providing it a
phenomenon in
medium.
the kitchen.
Yes, definitely. So it's just a natural, it's like a medium that we are providing so that, we have some sort of a control on what goes into our compost pile. It all depends on what we eat and what we then throw out as the food scrap. And also what sort of medium that we're using, right? It could be in a pit that we do traditionally back in the day. We used to just dig out a pit, put in all of our kitchen waste, and then, cover it with soil. Nowadays, there are different bins that are available. You have your different types of composting bins that are available. People still do it, if they have a land, if they stay in an individual house, they still, sort of put that in dig a small area and just put their waste into that. So I think it's all about providing or the medium that you're looking to do your composting in. But otherwise, it's just like you said, it's a very natural process. So
the next thing is like, what are the different kinds of composting? What are the various kinds of composting? As you mentioned about air and oxygen, what are the different kinds of composting possible?
Correct. So with composting itself, like I said, the basic thing is that you require your kitchen waste and your brown material. But apart from that, whether you provide this oxygen or the airflow through your compost pile, that's what the key difference is between the various types of composting. So I'll start with aerobic composting. So aerobic composting is when you allow air or the oxygen to pass through your compost pile. And by letting it passing through the pile, it just means that you're not putting your waste in an airtight container or a bin. So you're letting that air that is naturally flowing through the in the environment, just to let it pass through the unit. So because of this, what happens is there is no bad odor at all, which is your leachate, and also something called carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide again is there is no smell when it releases, so you will not have any issue with smell during your aerobic composting. And then coming to anaerobic. So anaerobic is again when you are adding your waste in an airtight container, just making sure that there is no air which is naturally in the environment, and you're not letting it pass through the compost pile. That's all that anaerobic composting involves. So just what happens with this is that there are different types of gases that are released. So apart from carbon dioxide, you also have some sort of methane, some amount of hydrogen sulfide that is released. So with this, there can be some amount of smell during composting. So typically, which is why in anaerobic you can find some amount of smell that does arise while when you do this. I think apart from this, there is one more type of composting, which is your vermicompost. Now again, so vermicompost again is it's almost the same as aerobic composting, where you're definitely allowing the air to pass through. Apart from that, you are also adding, your earthworms into this particular environment and making sure that they act on the waste, and then they help it to, turn that into compost. With vermicomposting, again, I think if you're doing it on like a larger scale, where you have enough people taking care of it, and because you have to provide the right environment, the right temperature, and the right pH level, so it a little tedious task to do at home. But traditionally, if it was being done in a pit, I think people get attracted to the food, and then they work on that. So these are the different types of composting that we have. Yeah.
For a home composter, what would you think? Like, I've heard that anaerobic, releases methane, and you also mentioned that there is a lot of smell and those kind of things. In that case, do you think aerobic composting is a better option for home composters?
So you can look at it two ways. One is that, like I said, there is this amount of leachate or the moisture that's already in your waste that is being released, during composting. So this leachate is very nutritious. It's highly nutritious because it's got a lot of these nutrients that were in your food now that is leached into the water, and it's coming out of your unit. So this particular leachate is the quantities are more in an anaerobic versus your aerobic composting. And hence, so if you're somebody who's looking to utilize that leachate to its maximum level, then I would definitely think that you can go for an anaerobic process. And also, if you're somebody where you have enough space, where your unit is not sitting right inside your home, right, and if you're not somebody who's going to be bothered by the smell, like small amount of smell that may arise due to anaerobic composting, then you can definitely go for that. But for anybody who's not looking to collect that extra leachate, or they're not looking to or they're not able to tolerate the smell, and if that's something that they're already worried about, then it's better to start off with an aerobic composter, which will give you less leachate and also less no smell at all, in fact.
As home composters, what are the various options people have to, how to go about composting? What are the various options they have?
Right. So with home
Someone
composting,
who's never done composting. I mean, we consider as someone who's never done composting.
Right.
What are the various options they have, and how they go about it?
Right. So if you, like I said, if you have the space, traditionally, a lot of people were just doing it in pits. The problem with pits, what we've noticed over the past few years is also that your rodents and, other pests get attracted to these pits, especially if you're not following the proper sort of method and, covering up your waste thoroughly. So there can be all of these problems arise with pit composting, wherein your rodents get attracted, and then, that causes a menace to your garden space. So to avoid that, I would recommend going for either an aerobic or anaerobic composter. With this particularly, with both these models, you have a lot of different options in the market these days. You have a lot of, plastic home composting options that you can go for. You also have terracotta, home composting options. We also have like a range of terracotta and plastic options that are out there. And if you're somebody who's just, before they buy a product, they want to just try it on their own, just, take a small pot, put in your, kitchen waste in that, put in some dry leaves, or put in some coco peat. And in terms of accelerator, if you can, find some sort of a bacterial culture, you can add that, or you can also, just add in your buttermilk, which already has a lot of microbial culture. You can just add that and just let that be for another 30 to 40 days, and you will see the beauty right there, right? Your compost, your food waste is just completely turned into compost. So those are the various things, or the various ways that you can go in terms of starting to compost.
Could there be a small demonstration? Could you do a small demonstration?
Definitely. So I'm just going to show you the product that I have here. I hope everyone is able to see this.
Yeah.
So this is our, 3-tier nano khamba is what we call it. As you can see, it's quite small. And so we've designed this particular product, just so that anybody who wants to just give it a try, they can use this product, even if it's for kids, for small kids who want to start learning, they can just use it. So like you can see, there are 3 units. I'll just show you what the inside of these units look like. So if you open the lid of the first unit, you'll see it's open at the bottom. So this is what the unit looks like, and this is the second or the middle unit, again open, and it's covered by a mesh. And the third one is the only one which is completely covered at the bottom, right? So there's no hole. So the process is quite easy. All you have to do is, put in a small piece of paper at the bottom, right? And then
But
you can
if I
add in
use
your.
a matka instead of this, if I use a
Mhm.
matka instead of this, that will not have a hollow base like this. So it will create any problem for the person to compose, because I have been using a normal matka. So
No, no.
by this mesh, you know.
Mhm. So this particular mesh over here, so like you saw that, these are placed one on top of the other, right? So why we've created the mesh is that in case there's any liquid or any amount of moisture that needs to, flow down, it'll automatically flow from the top to the bottommost unit, in which you would probably be adding some amount of cocoa peat or some dry leaves just to absorb that excess moisture. So that's the only reason that we've created sort of a mesh at the bottom. Yeah, so I'll just explain this to you. So you just, all you have to do is put a small piece of paper at the bottom and put something called remix powder or cocoa peat. Now we have that material in our store too, but it's just you can also use cocoa peat instead. I'll just show you what that looks like. It's just cocoa peat like that, right? Just a very loose amount of cocoa peat. So all you have to do is, put your sheet of paper, put some amount of cocoa peat on top, and then adding a fresh kitchen waste that you have for the day. It could be up to 500 grams, 1 kilo, or even more, depending on what your size of your khamba or your terracotta pot is. So you can just add your kitchen waste for the day, and then cover it completely. Make sure that your waste is not visible at all with this particular remix or the cocoa peat powder or even your dried leaves. So one thing to remember is that if you're using dry leaves, I would recommend that you definitely shred it into very small pieces, so that any using this powder or the dry leaves itself. So that's the main reason why you add the brown material. It's so that your excess moisture is absorbed, and also so that it provides a carbon source which is required for composting. So yeah, just cover your waste thoroughly with the brown material, any brown material that you can get, and put another layer of paper on top and cover the unit. That's all you need to do for the day.
Any particular ratio of the green and the brown waste? Any particular ratio?
Typically not as such, right? But if you can go with a 2:1 as well. For every 2 of your waste, you can go for 1 of your the browns. It could be cocoa peat or dry leaves. But one thing to remember is that if your waste already has a lot of moisture, right? If it's a lot of fruit peels, or if it's a liquid or a curry item, so I would recommend that you strain out all the liquid that's in your waste first, because you don't want to add extra liquid into your unit.
Like watermelon and all, which are very, very, wet.
Right. So what happens is, if you're using a plastic composter, right, your plastic material in itself doesn't absorb the excess moisture as much or at all as compared to your terracotta pot. So in those cases, yes, it would be great if you can drain it out, and it doesn't have to be like you don't have to keep it on the strainer for hours or anything. Even if you just let it be on the strainer for a few minutes, or like 15 to 20 minutes, just let that excess water drip out, and then you add it into your dustbin or any small bin where you're collecting all of your daily food waste. That would be great. Because with terracotta, what happens is that the material itself absorbs a lot of the excess moisture that's in your waste, and hence you don't need to be as rigorously doing the whole streaming process when you're using terracotta pots. Yeah. That's the issue with or the difference between using a terracotta or plastic. But yeah, so once you're done doing that, all you have to do is just repeat the process on a daily basis. Make sure your unit is full. Maybe since it's a small unit, it may take you just a day or two to fill this up, and then you bring it down to. So since we've got 3, you'll bring it down to the second position, and you'll bring this one on top. So I'll just show you what that would look like. Just like that. Just make the switch and make sure that your first one is in the second place and the second one is on top. Now just repeat the process. Just add in your kitchen waste for the day, add in your browns for the day, and just cover it up. And what I would recommend apart from this is that you can actually add your accelerator, be it your buttermilk or be it your microbial culture, any bacterial culture that you can get a hang of. You can add that once a week, just about a spoon or 2. What this does is, just gives it an extra boost to your composting process. So you can do that, and that will, sort of help in fastening the whole composting process as well. And yeah, so once your second and first units are both full now this is the one that you started out with, the one in the middle. All you have to do is take this, empty everything into the bottommost spot, right? And then you bring it back on top, and now this is gone in the middle, and you've put this back on top. So that's about it. And then you repeat the process. Now once all 3 are full, then all you have to do is take this bottommost unit, and you can just start to dry it out. Your food waste, most of it would have turned into compost. You just have to take it into a separate container, use an old plastic container or any old bin or pot that you might have. Just let it mature for another 10 to 12 days. Let it just dry out a bit, so that for time for it to get converted into compost. And sometimes what happens is you might see certain items that are not complete, the non-vegetarian bones that you're adding in, or it could even be like the pista shells or peanut shells, right? All of these thicker, larger items. So these, if they're not completely done at the end of your first cycle, all you have to do is just pick them, put them back into your unit. I'll just show you what a half-ton compost would sort of look like. I hope some of you can see. So we've got the bones as well over here. So this is what your half-ton compost. So it starts to decay. It's not what your regular bone would look like when it's fresh. So it's starting to decay, but it's not completely done. So all you have to do is when you find some of these items, just pick them, put them back into the composter, and probably like the 3rd or 4th cycle, they will get done. So that's the thing to remember with, once your compost is ready. And I'll also show you what completely done compost would look like. So after your maturation period, what the quality of the compost or the type of or the texture of the compost that you would get could be a bit lumpy. It doesn't have to be completely powdered form. Why this happens is because in your unit all your waste was completely compacted, right? So it's not necessary that it will be very porous or to get the texture that you see. This way you sieve it out. So it's very dark in color, dark brown to almost black in color. So this is the kind of compost that you can expect. And with this entire process, so what I showed you was something like a 3-tier, because it was one on top of the other. You can also do it in pots by just keeping it one next to the other. Just take any 2 or 3 pots, depending on what cases. So just take any 2 to 3 pots and start using that. Start in one pot, add in your waste and your browns, add in your microbial culture for the week. And then once your first one is full, then move on to the second and then the third. So in this way, you can actually compost with any pots that is available with you in the market.
So any stirring is required? Like, do we need to move around the compost in between at any point of time? Or we just go by layer? Do we go layer by layer? It's
usually a layering process, Sangeeta. No. So no need to mix at all. Typically, if you're adding a good amount of browns, right? So the other thing to remember is that your leaves do not absorb the moisture, like I said, as well as the coco peat. So if you are using leaves as your medium to compost, then I would recommend adding, again, shredding your leaves into, tiny bits of pieces, and also adding a lot more leaves as compared to what your coco peat would be. So if your coco peat is typically a 2:1 ratio, so 2 is food and 1 is your coco peat, then I would recommend doing a 2:2 ratio for leaves, only because leaves take a lot more time to decompose by themselves, and the fact that leaves do not absorb the moisture as well. So another thing to remember is, like you said, the whole stirring process is only required when your compost pile is wet. If you're not adding enough of the brown material, then what can happen is your compost pile can be a bit wet. So easiest tip is just add a lot more of your browns, add a lot more of your leaves of coco peat, then use a rake or any other old stick that you might have, and give it a nice mix inside the unit. So then what happens is, your browns are easily mixed with all of the compost pile, and because of this, there's a lot of airflow also passing through the unit, and hence there's no smell, and there's good enough aeration, which is typically required for aerobic composting. So that's the only time when mixing is required.
Okay, Usha, most people think that composting is smelly. It's not hygienic in the house. We have small homes, we have apartments, we have small balconies.
Right.
Do you think composting creates these kind of issues in the house? Insects and those.
Never felt any smell that's coming from the unit, apart from literally the time where I've added the waste to the unit as such. On that given moment, obviously, because you've been storing your waste from the morning till the evening or so, and then there can be some amount of smell when you add it. But apart from that, if you are using the right amount of carbons in your the carbon material in your compost pile, then there is absolutely no smell. And again, like I said, if you're following an aerobic composting process, there isn't any smell, because there's a lot of airflow that's happening, right? So all of any of the how to explain it, or any of the smell that's in your waste, that automatically just mixes with the air, so there's no amount of foul smell coming out of the unit. And the other thing to remember is that smell usually comes in when there's a lot of moisture in your waste. If your moisture is absorbed by the carbon in the pile, then there is no smell at all. So that's the key ingredient which gives out the smell too.
Yeah,
also,
anaerobic, I have experience. When you open your bins, anaerobic really, and even the leachate does. I mean, you get used to it if you are using it for your garden, or you are wanting to compost.
Yes.
But anaerobic really creates because that has another process. Like it has to go into stage 2, and then it's a longer process as compared to. I think aerobic actually makes more sense.
So aerobic can be a little more faster too, like you said, because you're not really doing much to the pile after. Once you layer it, you let it be for about another 15 to 20 days, and then you'll see that after an entire period of 35 to 40 days, your pile is just turned into fresh, earthy smelling compost. So in terms of if you're looking for a little faster process, and if you're looking for a more less cumbersome process, then definitely aerobic will do the job for you. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you also mentioned about
Usha, one general question that is coming is, how many days does it take? So composting is all about patience, so everybody wants to know how many days does it really take.
Yeah, so typically composting is a time-taking process, again, because we're not trying to eliminate the natural science that happens inside the unit. So I would say that typically about 35 to 45 days is what it would take you to get your compost. It's usually it'll take you a couple of days to fill up. If you're using multiple pots, especially, it'll take you probably about 7 to 10 days to fill up one pot, and then you move on. And then another, once the 30-day period is done, then you probably store it for another 10 to 12 days, depending on how wet or dry your compost is. And then so typically about a 45-day period is when your composting gets done.
I think the natural process takes longer, Probably
It does.
because of your accelerator that you provide, maybe it's faster, because I've observed that it takes about more than 2 months, actually 2.5 months to if you're going by the natural process, not adding any accelerator.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you don't add any accelerator, and if you just let your waste be just mixed with the brown material, then it'll take easily about 65 to 80 days even to completely turn into compost. The only reason we add the accelerator is so that you're able to manage the space that you have. So a lot of us live in small apartment balconies, small apartments with like limited amount of space in a balcony. So if you had to leave it for about 60 to 90 days, then you're looking at a huge amount of space to actually store this half-ton compost at regular periods. So just to sort of avoid having to do that, we came up with the accelerator. So that and this accelerator, like I said, it doesn't have to be something chemical. The accelerators that you get these days are very organic, so it doesn't really disrupt with your whole organic farming that a lot of us tend to do. So you can use these organic accelerators. You can also just use buttermilk that's at home, right? Just mix your curd with water and make sure that it's highly nutritious, and then you add that once or twice in a week. So that also does the job.
Yeah, Usha, if you could quickly say any do's and don'ts that you feel that what should be added into the pit and what should not be added. I'll just make a small note that we have a very small window of 40 minutes today, because Usha and me both have a meeting after this. So what we'll do is we'll put the recording on the Facebook group, and Usha will join the group and she'll answer all your queries. Whenever possible,
Definitely.
you can just put your queries there and we can do that. And any do's and don'ts and any things that we should not add to the pit, or any things that should not go into the pile at all.
Right. So I wanted to actually show you a small sheet that this. So I can actually share the sheet with everyone on the group later. So a lot of different items that you can see. You can see your fruit and vegetable peel. So it could be shells, it could be corn cobs. I'll actually share this sheet later. So all of your fruit, anything that's generated in your kitchen, right? So it could be your fruit and vegetable peels, it could be corn cobs, it could be cooked food, it could be just rotten vegetables as well. Anything that's in your kitchen can actually go into your composter. You can also add like tissue paper if you've just used it to wipe your hands. Thin ply tissue paper, you can add that too. You can also add small amount of flowers if you have like a small apartment or balcony garden and you're growing some plants of flowers in that. So even small amount of flowers and leaves as well that you can compost. Do remember that leaves and flowers do take a little bit longer to decompose, but you can add it. You can I think somebody's just asked about tea bags. Yes, you can add coffee powder, tea bags as well. Just to remember that some of these tea bags do come with like a stapler pin. So if you can, try and remove that and then add it. But otherwise, you can add all of these. You can also add, even if it's a lot of dairy or if it's a lot of maida or atta, a lot of these things that we usually consume. And if you think that those gone bad, you can actually add that as well. Non-vegetarian food, the bones as well, even if it's meat, all of that. The one thing to remember is at least down south, a lot of us use the coconut very often in our cuisine. So the coconut shell that you see, the outside the brown color shell, so that is typically dry waste. A lot of us do get confused that it could be wet waste, but what happens is that the outer shell is so thick that it takes very, very long to decompose. So it's important that you discard it as dry waste. Other things that you can add is even bits of paper.
Closing now, we will have to take rest of the questions probably on Facebook. And don't worry, there are questions pouring in. I'll just transfer the questions on the Facebook group. Let's thank Usha for joining us today. And I think one thing we need to do is we need to pledge that my waste is my responsibility, and there is some, I would say some kind of a realization of this kind of a feeling inside. Let's close the session today with this feeling, and rest we will continue on this on the Facebook group.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Usha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta.